No, it'll be sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll talk for the people who might be watching the video on demand after I post that. But hi guys, come on in, blah blah blah, bullshit with us. But first, we're going to be talking to John Human about global warming, which I actually think is going to be really interesting because I see a lot of alignment just in our 30 seconds of interacting, kind of getting the perspective. And also, I think it would be really good for the doom and gloom people to probably hear this conversation. So I'm kind of excited for it. And then after that, we'll be talking to a gentleman by the name of Radhome in about hour to 90 minutes, depending on how quickly we get through the data and the agreements and all that kind of stuff. But we'll shoot for about an hour, hour and a half. And then if we lose momentum or if we cover all the points we need to cover, then we'll roll into Radhome for politics and Warhammer 40K. But John Human, you just said a lot of really fucking interesting things to me really quickly. Would you mind tell me what's your profession? What's your interest in the data behind, global warming or climate change? And kind of what's your general perspective that you summarize for me?
Yeah, so just your average guy. I've been interested in climate for about, I'd say 10, 15 years. I kind of specialize in ancient climate because the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, and we can't just look at a small slice of it. My profession professionally is I'm a carpenter by trade, but I do what they call homesteading, and I practice a thing called regenerative farming. So I don't know if some of your viewers have ever heard of it, but I'm really interested in using technologies to make the soil better and make the ecosystem better and actually pull carbon from the atmosphere by using I guess you can also call it a holistic approach where I'm using livestock and plants to basically make a small ecosystem. I got into this stuff. I've been homesteading for about 10 years, originally in Arizona. I just recently moved to Idaho, so I'm not where I'd like to be right now. So currently right now, I would say about 30 to 40% of my food comes from me, and I have to outsource the rest. But when I was in Arizona and I was established for about 7 years, 8 years, it was like 96% of my food and needs were met on my property. Yeah, I just a guy who I guess you could say I've spent a lot of time. I have a 6 foot high by 3 foot wide cabinet, like filing cabinet, full of studies, all in reference to climate and technologies that possibly can, face it. And I want to make it very clear to your viewers that I'm not denying that climate change doesn't exist. I'm not saying that it's not happening and humans don't have an impact, but what I'm saying is nothing we are experiencing now is abnormal, and it's not so settled, I guess you can say. There's still a lot of debate. There's a lot of theories that possibly we're still technically leaving the last ice age about 12,000 years ago that ended prematurely. We don't know, but I do know that we have to do something
Well,
because
yeah.
I do.
So let
Go ahead.
me. Yeah, so I was gonna say let me kick in a little bit. So basically, what I was gonna say is like I come at this from being a little bit skeptical because I do take like a long lens to history, kind of like what you were talking about. Like we've been around for 4 billion years. We affect the climate. Yeah, we change our environment. Yes, we do this. Yes, we do that. But also the environment itself is incredibly hardy and tends to adapt to whatever's going on. So it was weird to me to conceptualize the fact that we would basically destroy the entire planet in like a generation or two. That seemed like a little wild to me. And there's
Yeah,
also
that's.
yeah, so
Go
there's
ahead. Go ahead.
also
Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say. So there's these wild things where like I try to be as charitable to liberals and progressives as I can because oftentimes they feel like they're always fucking right. But then, but then I also keep my own skeptical brain moving, and what my skeptic brain saw. For instance, there was like a recent study where permafrost in Russia. The big fear is that CO2 production is going to melt the permafrost. The permafrost is going to melt the methane. That's going to cause a feedback loop, and the methane is going to destroy the planet and cause like a greenhouse warming thing. When they actually
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when they evaluated the areas that had the permafrost, they basically like 90%, 95% of the methane that they were worried about, fucking got absorbed, like locally in the
Yeah, yeah.
environment.
And to kind of piggyback off what you said, another thing that leftists and progressives do is, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia and how it's supposedly dying from
Dying
the
now,
nitrous
yeah,
oxide. Yeah,
yeah.
well, the problem is it's actually growing at an accelerated rate right now. And that's why when you had the
Is that
conversation on Twitter,
partially
I sent you.
because of human intervention, though?
So partially, we can't really determine the exact percentage because it's really hard to extrapolate. But at the end of the day, plants like CO2, and that's why when we had our discussion on Twitter, I sent you what actually most people don't know is what we're experiencing is a global greening right now. It's a fun fact, and most of your viewers probably don't know this, but there's more flora now than there has been in the last 12,000 to 18,000 years, even probably longer than that. There are more trees, more plants, and we're experiencing an abundance of plants. The problem a lot of people get caught up on is global warming is not a threat. Actually, if you look at the anthropological records, we actually do better as a society. What we really need to be concerned about is the death of the ocean, the acidification of the ocean, and global cooling. Because if we enter an ice age, we're screwed because you can't grow, you can't do anything.
Well, and that's
So I
kind of
think,
so if I understand correctly, so this would be there's this video where it's like climate change is a nightmare, and they go over a lot of the skepticism that I had about like CO2 and correlation and temperature and like all this kind of stuff. So they actually did a great job kind of dispelling a lot of my skepticism. But then what ended up happening was they were kind of saying that we are kind of like you said, outside of a global cooling whatever cycle. And so as a result, we flourished, like you said, we flourished because of that. And if we actually did hit an ice age, we'd be fucked. But then I'm also thinking about like human adaptability. Would we just like create greenhouses everywhere? Would we, use solar and like atriums and like, the way like shopping malls are built now? Would we use those to survive
yeah,
on the planet if the environment got hostile? And then does that also shoot back to basically, what the fuck would you say? Basically shoot back to the heating. Do we not have similar opportunities where we could use technology in order to avoid a cataclysm?
yeah. No matter what, I think we as a species will survive. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the ease of survival. What human beings in modern the. I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous, but so the only anomalous thing right now is that the temperature has been so stable for so long. I don't think people can comprehend what an ice age feels like. I'm talking. So I live in Idaho, right? If I were to go 90 miles north of where I am currently, that whole area was 2 miles high of ice. And I'm talking temperatures of like negative 40, negative 50, negative 80. So if we enter something like that, it's going to be really hard to survive. But what we're facing right now is what, 1.8 degrees? And we personally, so if you look, so I don't know if you know anything about the Younger Dryas.
I do not.
Okay, so let me go through the charts I gave you. Just give me 1 second. I unfortunately have to be on my phone and in my car because I live in a tiny house.
Well, you don't
And
have
my woman,
to.
yes,
Yeah, I will take everything you say on good faith. And basically, when I bump into data hungry people, they typically, I don't want to say always know the literature, but they tend to kind of know the literature, right? So even if you just wanted to
yeah.
summarize it, I'm not gonna be like,
Oh, sure, of
no, I
course.
I heard different. Like I'm not gonna do that.
And also, what I'm doing currently, I'm gonna start it on tomorrow because my girlfriend leaves. I'm actually gonna compile a Google Drive document with probably about 5 to 6 thousand studies and charts and graphs, and kind of give it to you on Twitter or through direct messages, and you could share it with your viewers because everything I'm bringing up is not contentious. So basically, the Younger Dryas was the last ice age right after the Holocene. It was about 12,000. It ended about 12,800 to about 11,600 years ago. And what happened was there's two prevailing theories: was A, it ended naturally, and B, we got hit with a celestial event that basically melted the ice cap up in the northern part of the world and basically rose the sea levels 400 feet in about 2 weeks.
When you
Now,
describe
in the
that
data,
event, would that be like a meteor? What would that be?
yeah, so currently we've found possibly three impacts. So basically, the theory goes that a celestial impact came and basically a meteor and hit the ice cap. but because it hit it with such tremendous force and heat, it basically melted all that ice immediately, and then that sprawled over the whole world. And what mainstream scientists call it, is called meltwater pulse 1b. You could see it in the Vostok Icelandic core samples. You could see it everywhere. The global sea level rose 400 feet. Now, this is the caveat.
Whoa!
People say, "Oh my God, that's far."
Whoa! How
Oh, go ahead.
quickly? How quickly?
In about a week. About a week.
Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. So if your viewers are interested, you can actually check out a guy. His name is Randall Carlson. I think he's been doing geology for about 45 years. He's like me too. He doesn't have an yeah, it's called Meltwater Pulse 1b. In the document I sent you, you could see it. It's about 11,600 to 12,600 years ago that happened. In basically a geological second. Did you say
12,000 years ago?
Yeah, 12,000 years ago. We were alive.
Does that not absolutely fucking line up with like the Semitic people, like Jews basically having the the grand narrative of the Great Flood for Noah?
Well, that's not just the Jews. That's also the Christians, the Catholics, the Sumerian people, the Roman people. Every culture that's ever
has a Great Flood narrative.
Yeah.
So literally, they've geologically confirmed, like obviously not like Noah's Ark, but they've geologically confirmed the flooding event that would have inspired Noah's Ark.
Well, yeah. Well, you got to think about it. Randall Carlson, I'm pulling from his work right now, but he believes the wall of water was roughly about 1.5 miles high, and it sprawled over Montana and Idaho and Wyoming and all these places, and then just filled up. And basically, now what happened right after that is what's crazy is that you would think. So essentially, 192 megafauna died instantly. The woolly mammoth, the cave bear, not the woolly mammoth, I'm sorry, the gigantic sloth, the saber-toothed tiger, a bunch of animals. You can look them up yourself. I'm drawing a blank on which animal, but 192 megafauna died. But yet, what happened almost immediately after is humans rose out of that and created agriculture. And we survived. And we flourished because what we saw after that was basically a warming period, because all that heat and water dissipated and the cold reflecting off into the atmosphere that kept it cool was gone now. And then we saw a warming period. That's why one of the main theories that I subscribe to is that actually what we're seeing now is not man-made, but us coming out of that ice age that was ended prematurely through a celestial impact, because we are following all the markers of a pre-glacial period. If you look at, so this is what a lot of people do in mainstream science. I'm sorry I'm rambling right now, but I get really passionate about this stuff. I love it.
No, I kind of love it, because the thing that we hear is like, science is settled. We know that, it's CO2, and I'm not, by the way, like I know that nothing that you have said has contradicted that. I'm just saying that like the main thing that you hear is like, oh, science is settled, don't question it. Nothing, nothing crazy has happened. It's not geological. It's not anything like that. It's just CO2. That's all it is. And so as a result, start eating the bugs, or we're all gonna die.
So actually, that's actually a common misnomer. The connection between CO2 and global warming is shaky at best. It's really correlative. If you look at since the Industrial Revolution, you can kind of correlate it and say, oh, wow, look at this. But this is the problem with a lot of academics and a lot of people do, is we're looking at the data for 100 years. And if I were to show you a graph out of 100 years, you would think the sky was falling, like, oh my God, we're all going to die. But then if I showed you 1,000 years and I go, hey, look at this. Did you know that it was hotter in the medieval times than it is now? And you'd be like, oh, really? That's strange. And then I go 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 800,000. The real hang up people don't realize is we're human. We see things in 60 to 80 years, so 1,000 years is a long time, but the Earth does things in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. Like when I showed you that other one, I was going to show you another one where go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so one of the things that I saw that basically came out recently, it was like a geologist or something like that, and he was like, hey, like, if you look at these things, they're very alarming, they're very convincing. You can see the the CO2 correlation, you can see this, that, the other, but with the modern model that shows basically a straight J hook of global warming or whatever, they
Yeah.
omitted the mini ice age in the 1400s or whatever, and they
Yep.
omitted I forget what the fuck it was, but they omitted like another major like heating event basically. And so
Uh-huh.
by omitting those two, they basically created a nicer graph through which to tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah, and then what they also do is another sleight of hand is what they'll do is they'll compact the last 100. They'll show you a graph of 1,000 years. But what they'll
Mm.
do, and you'd really have to look at the chart, but what they do is they kind of slightly compact the end to give you that higher J hook.
The J hook,
It's
yeah,
big
okay.
business. Yeah, it's big business, right? But here's the not a caveat, but here's another thing. CO2 levels are 0.04% of the atmosphere. That's it. Everything else is all different kinds of chemicals, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the last 800,000 years, or even I think it's roughly 6.5 million years, CO2 levels have stayed reasonably stable, about 280 million parts per million, which is pretty okay. But yet we've seen in the last 12,000 years a temperature shift of 18 degrees in a matter of years. There's the same thing with the meltwater pulse B that correlated with an 18-degree temperature jump, and then it cooled down. So when you really start getting into the data, it starts painting a different picture because I think, I personally enjoy it, but most people, like your viewers, probably don't have the time, and they not neglect, but they don't understand that scientists are people too, and they need funding. And it's against the establishment or whoever funds them to speak ill of climate. Like another funny thing
Well,
I like
so
to listen
let's
to is when people.
yeah, so let me
Hey, go
ask you
ahead.
this question then, because you basically I was kind of joking where my skepticism or whatever was going to be you're in my skepticism was going to be married and it was going to be like a circle jerk and we get accused of disinformation. What do you agree with the mainstream consensus about? Like what do you agree with them that like is happening? Like is CO2 and temperature correlated? Is human whatever, like human fucking activity causing the CO2 jump that's causing temperature increase? Like what's the thing that like you're like, okay, they make sense here. I think they're exaggerating to cause alarm, but this makes sense.
Okay, so I 100% agree that we as a species have an impact on the environment. That's without a doubt. That's not. I don't think any sane person who knows the data as well as I do, or anybody remotely close to me, would say.
Mm.
I do disagree on that point that we have a massive impact because we can't extrapolate it. We don't know. I do agree with them when it talks. My main concern really is the acidification of the ocean. That is really that will screw us because if we say die from a nuclear war, life comes from the ocean. And if we acidify the ocean, we will create a dead zone and all life will cease to exist. The ocean is the life force of this planet. We get most of our
I mean, it's
oxygen from the
literally
ocean.
2/3 of the fucking shit, you know?
Yeah, 70, 74
70% of
percent.
the
But who's
planet.
who's counting? Yeah. I think that's really it. I do know that CO2 does cause warming. I disagree with how much warming it's causing because when you look at the data, we're not really experiencing anything remotely close. And the reason why I say CO2 is kind of shaky is because we saw a similar warming in the medieval time and there was no CO2 really.
Yeah,
The
so
Industrial Revolution hasn't really even happened. And we saw the same kind of spike and then drop. And what we're seeing is, and another fun fact is that we actually haven't seen any substantial increase in temperature in the last 20 years. And people say, oh, well, there's more hurricanes and floods. No, there's not. There's been a exhaustive study of 150 years, and hurricanes are actually decreasing in effectiveness or destructiveness because we're getting better at dealing with them and not living in these areas that they happen, and our buildings are stronger. But they're not gaining any traction. This is all normal. I,
well,
I, I
and
just I don't want people to think it's doom and gloom. It's not. We'll be fine.
Well, and then that was my other thing too about basically the adaptability, because we were talking about like on a century curve, right? So
Hmm.
on a century curve, I was like, don't humans like, and this is me being kind of a dick to people who are worried about the people who will be killed by climate change. But I was like, wait, don't we like live in West Africa, but we also live in the Arctic? Like, aren't human beings some of the most like adaptable fucking species on the planet? So like a 10-degree temperature jump. Like, yeah, it potentially could suck for me here, like down in Florida. Like it's already 95 degrees. If it
Oh
goes
yeah.
up to
Oh
105, it's gonna suck. But that doesn't, it's not unlivable, and it's also not
no.
unlivable with like environmental accommodations. Like, so for instance, air conditioning. Now, maybe you want to stop using air conditioning because you don't want to contribute further to the CO2 in the environment, or you want to change the way that you use energy or whatever. But basically, that for me is like, I feel like as a species we'll survive. And when I push back on
Oh yeah.
people, like on Twitter or whatever, and I'm like, hey, I feel like you're being alarmist because literally you listen to somebody like Vosh and it's like we have 12
Oh
years
god.
or we're fucked. Like that's like,
Oh
we're
gosh.
all gonna die. And then when I push back on people on Twitter and I'm like, hey, listen, are we really all gonna die, or are some people gonna get fucked over by droughts and hurricanes, and also it might be more uncomfortable? They're like, oh, well, based off of these estimates, we're gonna have like excess deaths of like 500,000 to 3 million by 2100 that otherwise wouldn't have occurred if we had instituted climate change. And I'm like, that's not the same as saying that we're going to end as a species. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
that's where
yeah.
for me the alarmism is really frustrating, because I feel like we can't get a grapple on what's really happening, because the alarmism basically it makes the conversation impossible.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I can't believe you said Vosh in front of me. I hate that guy so much. um, I
What,
hate him so
specifically
much.
on
I just
climate or other things
no,
like?
just on everything, everything. He's an idiot. I'm sorry, he's an idiot.
Well, I
I
don't think
actually, it's
he's
funny
an
because I
unintelligent person. I think, but I I viscerally disagree with a good chunk of what he does, including alarmist rhetoric.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I'm actually talking to you because I actually watch you and Stitch and Adam, and I'm. It's
Big fan
actually
of
a really
Cincinnati.
cool honor to talk to you. Yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan. I got into a spat with him on Twitter, but that's here nor there. But um,
They do love their
um,
sparring. I'm trying to convince Sitch to begin his debate bro arc, but he doesn't seem. He seems to want to stay in his cage and do review Andy stuff with Adam, which like I love. Like if I want to.
yeah,
If I
yeah,
if I want to watch some review Andy fucking shit, like they're my number one guys, but I just think he's a talented
yeah,
enough
yeah.
debater that he could make some waves if he wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely can, and I think the debate side of the I don't really like I follow it, but like a lot of them make me so sad because it's just you're not really being productive. Well,
It's
it's sad because
rhetoric.
like
Yeah,
for
it's
me,
rhetoric.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
knowledge.
When I get really mad at leftists, right? So I'm not a leftist. I'm a libertarian, right? If you looked
Mm,
at me on the street, you wouldn't think I was conservative because I'm socially liberal. Yes, I'm alarmed about people will say, "Oh, I'm alarmed about the climate." Okay, well, what are you doing?
right.
I'm over
Still
here
driving the
busting
car.
my ass.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
well,
Dude, can
I drive a
Sorry,
car. But
you opened like a gaping wound for me. So my frustration is like literally leftists are like, we're destroying the environment. We only have 12 years to do something. Blah blah blah. And then like, but they're all living in like super cities. Half of them have cars, and they're like, car infrastructure is so bad for the environment. And I'm like, I agree, but they act like we're gonna just like grab jackhammers in like the next 5 years and just like rip up all the streets and stop driving cars. And I've like, dude, if you guys wanted to do anything about car infrastructure or transportation's contribution to like greenhouse gases, you have to get realistic that Americans are not gonna stop driving. We will
yeah, yeah,
fucking we will be getting like category 7 hurricanes, and we'll just go live
and
in
drive out of there.
bunkers for a week and like
Yeah,
drive to the
yeah,
bunker to hang out. We will do that before we give up cars. So get
yeah.
fucking real.
Well, so one of the main driving forces of so-and-so climate change is not really the transportation section when it comes to individual usage. Is actually more or less the animal agriculture industry and
Mm-hmm.
basically what I call big farm. Not
Literally
pharma, but big farm.
60% of it is
Yeah,
agriculture. Yeah.
yeah, and so there's already technologies online now that we can implement. So I'm like I said, I'm really big into solutions because I'm a pragmatist. I look at things, okay, what can we actually do and what can ease this transition? So I think a lot of leftists and a lot of progressives and a lot of alarmists, what they do is they say these things, but they're not actually willing to sacrifice some of the goods and services in their lives because they
No.
think that they can have, yeah, they
Yeah.
think they can have the good,
Never.
but you can't. To a degree, you can. Like, look, the internet's not going to go anywhere. Your computer's not going to go anywhere. None of this stuff is going to go anywhere. But what we need to do is implement technologies that allows us to have the least amount of impact on the ecosystem. And this is going to be a hot take, but
Uh-huh.
we need to open up our own national forests to mining because we have some of the strictest EPA regulations in the world, and it's better getting this stuff here than in freaking China. And then what we need to also do is decentralize our food system, right? So a lot of people don't know this.
Oh, dude,
I'm a
I
homesteader,
literally
so
started growing stuff. Yeah, even on a
yeah,
very minute level, I started growing shit at home
that's
because I was
something.
like,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, so I'm all about what I call the overall carbon footprint, right? And the trick is, this is, I guess we can transition this smoothly into what we can do
Solutions.
and solutions. So a lot of people get taken back because they think that they have to save the world. You
Mhm.
don't. Small little things that you can do every day have a massive impact, right? So for instance, you started gardening, right?
Mhm.
How much land do you have?
Quarter acre.
Like, do you have like a quarter? Okay. Did you know that off a quarter acre, I can show you techniques that you can feed your entire family the whole year off of that quarter acre, and you never have to go to the grocery store.
Oh, bro, like
Off of,
we're like 90% vegetarian, so like I was seriously thinking about
sorry to
just
hear
like
that.
getting like chickens and just like keeping them here and just dude,
Don't get don't
so
get
many fucking
chickens.
eggs. All right.
No, no,
Tell me.
don't get chickens.
Why
Get
are they bad
ducks.
for the
Okay,
soil or some
so
shit?
no. So actually, chickens for about 2 to 3 months out of the year they don't lay eggs.
Mm,
The food per egg is much higher than a duck. So ducks, I would, if you're a never owned livestock, go with a
mhm.
duck. One, they're cuter, they're smarter. Chickens are dumb as fuck, dude. Like for real. Their eggs are actually higher in omega 3, omega 6. They're higher in B12. They get,
For
I think it's like
ducks?
80%. Oh yeah, and
Dude,
they're like
I mean I
twice the
love
size.
ducks. They're fucking cute as shit, so I mean.
Yeah, the only problem is you can only have females. If you have one male, he'll just run around and rape all the females, and it's like legit rape. Like it's bad. But for your situation, like people think this is an overwhelming task at hand, but it's not. If you have
Mhm.
a quarter acre, you can make a substantial impact on the ecosystem and the flora and the fauna
Well,
around you. And I
let me
go
ask
ahead.
you, because there's some shit like that are being added as these new technologies that were kind of everybody's curious about like whether or not it does anything, right?
Okay.
So kind of like for instance, like solar. Like everyone and their mom is walking
No,
around right now in Florida trying to sell solar panels. So I guess my question
uh,
is that a boondoggle to you or is that real?
that's a boondoggle. I
Why?
live off of solar, and this is okay. So I've been living off of solar for 10 years. Okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that solar is bad for my kind of application. It's great. I'm off grid. I have 5 panels, 3 batteries, but there is a dark, dark, dark side of solar that people don't realize. For instance, one of them is we don't know how to recycle them. There's no
Yeah.
way to recycle them. And solar panels, only if you're in optimal conditions in Florida, you have maybe 15 years before they're done. And
Right.
that's not even including the battery, which has a shelf life of about 10. If you're going lead acid, if you're doing lithium, you have about 20. Then you got to look at the mining for the resources. The problem is that the mining for all these things are so bad. So it needs to be a mixture. It's not like the climate's not like politics where it's a zero sum game, where it's either this or that. It's a mixed bag. So, for instance, like in your application, you're depending on the density of your town, you'd be far suited better with nuclear. But then if you get to where I live, where my closest neighbor is like 3.5 miles away, there's no roads, there's no nothing. Solar works perfect for me because it generates what I need for me, and nuclear generates for the cities. And it needs to be a mixture of both. It needs to be
Right.
nuclear, wind, and solar. It's not
So
all solar
do
because
you just think all the fucking people who are like we could go to renewal tomorrow, we could do renewable everything. You think that's just fucking cope?
first off, I hate to burst your bubble, but
Might get really
there's no
upset.
such thing. Yeah, there's no such thing as a renewable energy. There's no such thing.
Uh,
Everything has a cost. And it always will extract resources out of the environment, and you can't renew the resources. Solar panels are made of mostly silica and a bunch of other material, and
mhm.
you can't just grow more silica. So to say it's a quote unquote renewable energy, it's kind of in the sense that every day the sun comes up, it's great. But then what do you do when, like for instance, I live off of solar, right?
Mhm.
If I have 3 or 4 days of bad weather, guess what I got to do? I got to go to my
Generator.
backyard and turn on my gas generator. Now, mind you, I only have to turn the generator on for an hour or two to charge up my batteries, and a tank of gas will last me a month, but it still needs more. It's
Mm.
not, the technology is just not
Well,
there yet. Now, I'm
mhm.
open to the possibility that in 10, 15, 20 years, the technology will be there, but for right now, it's not. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but solar is not the way. It's
Well,
just not.
so yeah. So this is, I guess the follow up, the follow up question is basically like, so this was kind of my macro picture was, I feel like they're waiting on fusion, but I think that's dumb. I think we could do fission for most cities and environment and safeguard the shit out of them. And then basically what my buddy said, he works for a natural gas designer. He basically said that in order to supplement nuclear for when renewables aren't able to supplement, you just need quick turn gas. And gas is like
Yeah.
70% more efficient from a CO2 perspective than coal or any competitor. So basically,
Yep.
like 80% or 50% or 60% nukes have that provide enough energy for the baseline, like the peaks and the troughs of the energy. And then for the peaks of
Yep.
the energy, have quick turn gas and fucking renewables. And then, like you said, rural stuff could be more solar focused, whatever. And then I guess my question is, he told me something that I couldn't understand, which is basically like the nuclear energy or whatever. He was saying that bleeding that energy out. I was like, why not just build two nukes and have too much energy? And he was basically saying because that energy has to go somewhere, and then any activity that you did bleeding it out or like storing it in batteries, that would all have a relative cost. And I basically told him like, why don't you just like shoot a space laser or something like into the sky and like in order to bleed off the excess energy? And he was like, I think that will have environmental effects as well.
Yeah,
Like, so
I would definitely, that's probably not a good idea. We should
okay,
not
no,
be shooting
so all right,
nuclear
so
lasers.
space
Yeah.
lasers are off the table. Got it. All right, okay, fair.
Yeah, well,
Um,
there's actually some new technologies coming online now, and I don't think they've actually created it yet, but in
mhm.
theory it works where they've been able to resource the runoff and use it again, but I don't know enough about it to really give you like a real hard line like this is my stance. I'm open to
Mhm.
the possibility, but I would have to agree
But you
with your
just want people to
friend.
stop being pussies and actually do shit themselves.
Well, so look, all right. So for instance, right? So we all love meat, right? Everyone talks about cow farts and blah blah blah. I sent you a study earlier. If
Mhm.
we just switch them from corn to red algae, it drops
Mhm.
their CO2 emissions by 90%.
Wait,
Ninety
wait,
percent.
wait, wait. So
Yes.
you need to explain that. So
Okay.
basically, mhm.
Have you ever debated a vegan? You ever debated a vegan? I'm pretty sure you have,
Yeah, I'm sure I have
right?
at this point.
Okay. So you know when they show you that chart where it says cows take 1,500 gallons of water to make 1 pound of beef, right? You've seen
Right.
those charts where it
Of
shows you how
course.
bad meat is. Okay, so this is another sleight of hand that these assholes do.
Mhm.
What they don't tell you is that 85% of the water consumption does not come from the cow. It comes from the corn, soy, and wheat because we feed them
Mm.
corn. Now,
Okay.
another unmistaken fact that people don't know is every cow in America, or I would say 95% of them, is pasture raised, meaning every
Mhm.
cow you eat, most of its life was in the pasture. It already lived its life. And then we bring them into the feedlot because of governmental control to basically process them and then give them to you. Now, what they do
Let
is
me
in
ask
the
that a
last
question.
10,
Don't they pretty much harvest them though once they've reached maturity? Like it reaches
it
maturity
depends,
and
yes.
then they
Yep,
harvest
got it.
them.
So a corn-fed cow they basically slaughter, I think, at a year and 3 months. But a
Uh-huh.
pasture or what we call a grass finished cow takes 2 years because you
Okay.
actually want the cow to be a cow. So that's why I'm into a thing called regenerative farming. It's allowing the cows to basically be a cow, poop,
Mm.
eat, mow grass, and then
Hang
so
out with their cow friends.
yeah. Let it be a cow because a lot of vegans and a lot of vegetarians don't understand this. But when you go to your garden and you pull out that bag of compost, that's cow poop and horse poop and chicken poop. It's some of the best compost we have for regenerating the soil. There's a guy named Joel Salestein for your viewers to check out. He invented, or kind of invented, holistic farming. So basically, what myself and him and others are doing is we're making practical solutions. We're saying, okay, A, no one's going to stop eating meat. B, soil retention is a very big problem because as it stands right now, we have maybe 50 to 60 seasons of topsoil left. So we have to do something.
Dude,
And
actually,
then,
yeah, can you kind of hit that a little bit because
yes,
that's
so
something that
not,
my dad talked about where he's like, "Oh yeah, this is wildly unsustainable. Like what we're doing is
almost, so think about, so the whole intention of regenerative farming is basically to create your own little ecosystem, right? So think about what happens in the wild, right? So you get your plants growing, and then the ruminids or the hooved animals come in and they start eating the grass, right? Kicking up soil, kicking up roots, and then they're pooping. What's in their poop? Pure protein for the soil and a bunch of other stuff, right? That
Mhm.
poop then goes back into the soil and then rejuvenates the soil and replenishes the topsoil. But what do humans do? What we've done is basically took Mother Earth, put a boot on her throat, and forced her by tilling and not regenerating the soil. So what we're doing is we're doing corn, soy, wheat, palm, all these plants, and we're not putting anything back, and we're extracting more and more nutrients out of the soil. And they actually did a study not too long ago. You ever notice why people in the 1950s and 60s looked a lot healthier?
Yeah, and
They
it's
were
because of
skinnier.
like they got like
The
we have
nutrition.
40% reduced nutrition or something.
Oh, yeah, and that's because we're not doing it properly. So they did an experiment, and Joel Salestein does this really well with chickens. I'm focused more on heads of cattle and pigs and stuff like that because I fucking hate chickens. I think chickens are dumb. Um, what he does is he has, I think he has 50 acres, and what he does is he grows crops on a small plot of it, like 10 acres, let's say. I'm just throwing out numbers here. And then what he does is after one season of growing, he rotates the chickens. And then
Uh-huh.
after the chickens, he lets the pigs come in because what the chickens do is they peck the bugs. And then they peck and they burrow with their little stupid claws. And then he lets the pigs come in, and the pigs, what they like to,
Listen, my
and then
my
what the
wife
pig,
will still be ecstatic that you want people to get ducks over fucking
yeah,
you know
yeah, ducks are
fucking
great. Ducks are great. They're my favorite. I have like 30 ducks, dude. They're great. They're great. But so then what he does after that is he lets the pigs come in, and then the pigs root and take all the obnoxious weeds out and leave just the soil, and they're pooping too, right?
mhm.
Then his last stage is cow, because cows can produce so much poop you don't even know what to do with it. And through that rotation, his soil is far better on his plot of land than his neighbor's land and his other neighbor's land because he's making an ecosystem. And that's what regenerative farming, and we can do it at scale. So
You
the
can't.
real
That
big
that was
problem,
literally going
we
to be
can
my next question. So
100%.
basically, because industrialization is like the main thing that everybody is spurred about because we've scaled up our population to industrialization. So I was literally going to ask you like, are the
Yes.
fucking new world order people fucking correct where we need to shut everything down, limit the population, all that kind of shit?
No,
Or
no.
can we actually like scale this up where we're not destroying the fucking planet, but we can
Yes.
also still have a large population civilized society?
And better, cleaner air and better soil. So, unfortunately, under the current paradigm, we can't. And this
Hmm.
is strong, mostly because we have a centralized form of agriculture. So, a lot of people don't know this, but let's say I'm a big chicken farmer, right? I
Hmm.
actually send my chickens to China to get processed, right?
Okay.
And then they send it back because it's cheaper. What the big government has done is basically they got lobbied by the big agriculture and big beef and all these guys to centralize these facilities. So, like, let's say, for instance, me and you, we're best friends, right? Let's say we've been hanging out, we've known each other our whole life, we want to start a farm, right?
Yeah.
The cost of entry for us to start a farm is probably roughly about $500,000 for me to even begin to put a seed in the ground if I want to sell it at a grocery store. $500,000 minimum.
Right.
And that doesn't even include the USDA organic stamp. That's like another $250,000. They've put these barriers in place where, like, for instance, I grow food in Arizona. I grew food, eggs, beef, all this stuff. I went to farmer's market. I would have loved, and any farmer will tell you, they would love to just give you the product directly because that cuts out the middleman, which is big agriculture. So, and this is why you saw a massive rise in monocrops, because they wanted the most bang for their buck, because corn, soy, and wheat are big sellers because most of the corn we grow actually goes to petrol, and then the cows get the byproduct. But it's really hard for a farmer to give you directly because of the government. The government has basically kind of gotten in the way of innovation. So what you have to do is, one, you have to decentralize the food network system. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is getting people like you and me together and saying, hey, what can you do and what can I do? And then what can we do as a collective? Because the government's not going to solve this, because the government's who got us in this mess in the first place. It's we, the people, that have to figure out the solution. So what we need to do is, step one, get the government out of the way, get rid of a lot of regulations, make the cost of entry to start your own farm almost nothing. If you want to sell produce at a grocery store or your local grocery store like Kroger's, I don't know what you guys have over there, but we have to get those barriers out of the way, because every single farmer you would see almost instantly drop the bag with the government and start selling you directly. Like, I'm lucky. I live in a rural area. If I want beef, I don't even have to pay for it. I could just go to my neighbor who has a bunch of head of cattle and say, hey, listen, man, I just scored an elk last year, but you and others don't have that, so you need. Yeah, well,
hold on.
I live in a
let
town with
me ask you this, because I already feel the statist pushback. I'm a statist myself. So the statism is obviously, basically like, oh well, if somebody raises their shit wrong, they abuse their animals, they cross contaminate, they do this, that, the other. What's the the method of holding those people to account, financially, or if they actually hurt or kill someone?
You can still do that. I'm a firm believer of no victim, no crime. Now, that's just my libertarian speaking, but I'll be pragmatic. We're never going to be a libertarian society, but let's put on a pragmatism.
See, here's the thing. Like, I feel like I'm in that meme where it's like, well, I like you, but I don't trust that guy. And then it's like, I don't even know that guy. And it's like, look at me, brother. And so that's exactly what I feel when I'm talking to you. Because I'm like, yeah, based. Let's get decentralized food. Let's all start growing food. Let's start trading. Let's get the government out of the way. Let's get rid of this regulation. Let's do this, that, the other. And then, but like, I just know so many people who are fucking retards that if you and I, we're living out in Montana and it's like, oh, this guy wants to fucking sell me some beef or some elk or some chicken or some shit like that. And I got this thing. I would absolutely, like, dude, all day, every day, I would fucking do that shit. Yeah. But basically there's so many fucking tool bags out there that that would be like a scary thing to just be like, oh yeah, like we'll just trust each other and do the right thing, and we'll rotate our crops and rotate our agriculture. And actually, hold on. So I wanted to ask one more thing about the rotating agriculture thing before we like get distracted.
It's an ancient practice.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is, so I learned, because I'm a big brain. I learned in school, about the Dust Bowl and how we didn't rotate crops, and that's how we fucked ourselves, is we basically, completely eliminated the soil, and that's why, we fucked ourselves. But then I also feel like what ended up happening was, or excuse me, but what I'm hearing from you is the agriculture monocrops are fucking us. But then there's also an incentive to do the rotational shit, but it might involve so much logistics that they're not going to do it until they're forced to do it. So I guess my question is, could you, let's say that you're starting from dog shit soil and you start this rotating process. Can you get back to
yes,
like a sustainable level
100%.
Or decent soil quality?
Yes, within 5 to 6 years. At most 10.
Nice.
You would see, so after the first year of rotation, you would see a slight increase. About the third, the fourth year, you would see a visible difference. And in about 10 years, it would basically be almost completely like right as rain. The environment wants to stay healthy. It has perfected everything for us. The problem is that human beings think we're smarter than nature. So what we've done is we've created a unnatural system to feed an unnatural society.
Yeah.
Because the way we're living now is unnatural, and
Oh,
there's
dude,
some philosophy.
Oh, dude,
I'm not.
can I
I don't mean
ask
it. I don't
you?
mean it in a bad way. I don't mean it in a
No,
bad
no,
way.
no, no.
I'm not
I want
saying.
to ask
No, go ahead.
you a super cringe fucking conversation that I had from the other
Uh,
day where I was yelling at people.
oh God.
Because basically, and you don't have to agree with me just because I was yelling at somebody else. But basically, what was going on was there were just these two guys, and they're both secular, so I don't understand their motivation at all. But they were basically arguing that animals don't have any kind of morality at all. And they're not moral agents. They're not capable of making, like, you know, good and bad decisions. They're just like raw, instinctive. They basically argued that they're biological robots. And I asked them, like, okay, well, what is the, you know, the physiological difference or the difference in humans that just like makes us the only creatures on the planet capable of moral reasoning? And they couldn't really give me a firm answer on it. And I guess my question to you is, do you think that, because you brought up the fact that, like, we think we're above nature, we think we're better than nature, your interactions with the environment, have they led you to think that human beings are more unique than and separate from nature, or that, like, we're fucking deluding ourselves and we are absolutely like fucking inexorably tied to nature and everything else is good?
We are intrinsically tied to nature. There's no way around it. And I think as a human species, you get kind of philosophical. I think that scares us because nature is uncertain. I think human beings, to a level, kind of like certainty. We like measuring things and knowing things. But nature, I spent a lot of time in the bush. Let me tell you something right now. When you go into the bush, you realize quickly that you're not the top dog that you think you are. You're a top dog, but you're not. A grizzly bear will take you out in a heartbeat and maul you to death and not even blink. So I think, yeah, and I think I think animals do have somewhat of moral agency. They do kind of have their own code. I don't think it's as strict as humans, or the sense of, like, they're definitely not scared of killing each other. They're definitely not scared of eating their young. That's different. But at the same time, I think that we humans, and I'm also really into animal consciousness too. And, like, fun fact, the killer whale has a frontal lobe twice the size of human beings, and they experience a range of emotions that
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. So dude, they were like, there's no evidence that animals have, like, any level of higher level thinking. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure animal behaviorists forever have been saying that animals are, like, infinitely more complex than we ever give them credit for.
Yeah. Okay, you want to know a fun fact?
Yeah.
You want to know a fun fact? Okay, a potato is infinitely more genetically complex than you and I.
Is infinitely more how complex?
Genetically complex than a human. You can Google it right now if you don't believe me. Yeah, potatoes are more genetically complex than a human, dude. So human beings are hubris. It boggles my fucking mind, and I don't mean that's right. I forgot you curse all the time too.
No,
it boggles my fucking mind.
It's my second language.
It boggles my fucking mind, the hubris of human beings, to think that the thing that created us, we came from nature, is somehow this immoral agent, that it doesn't know what it's doing.
Dude,
I always pose people,
that's what I was saying too. I literally said, it's like, dude, you keep, like, assigning, like, moral, human morality onto animals. And I'm not saying they have human morality. It could be a baser morality. It could be, like, a more instinctive morality. You could say could say that they have their own code that's, like, based rawly off of survival. And then what I brought up, well, and then the what was the other thing? Well, they brought up, like, a majority of the like, altruism that we saw in animals was when they were in captivity. But then that kind of, like, that blew a fucking, like, I almost had a fucking nosebleed thinking about that, because then I realized, like, well, what is captivity? Captivity is, like, a guarantee of like, food and shelter and all that kind of stuff, and human beings are largely in that. So is our morality, you know, quote unquote, isn't that a luxury of our, you know, self-imposed captivity and security and food and, like, all that kind of stuff? And the more I thought about that, the more it blew my mind. You're right, because I was thinking to myself, like, in war, You know, in war, we lose all of our quote unquote morality. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much.
So basically, and like our desire to survive, or even like you were saying, like going into the bush. Dude, I'm the kind of person that like I don't enjoy killing things. I don't want to kill things. It's not fun for me. You know, like I just don't think that way, I guess. But I also I was in the military, and there were a few days where we were hungry, you know, running off of, you know, 20 hours of or like 4 hours of
Yeah.
sleep, and fucking and like hadn't eaten in a day. And I was like, dude, I would fucking behead a baby seal right now in
Yeah.
order to fucking
Without a
eat.
doubt.
And so like
I
my
forgot.
morality disappeared because I was like, I'm hungry. Like I would eat you.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot. I don't remember who said this quote, but there's a good quote who's saying that humans are 3 days away from complete anarchy because if
Yeah.
you don't feed people for 3 days, that's it. I think what happens is because we are in this like kind of pseudo captivity where we made ourselves captive to our environment, like our society and culture at large. I think we are docile, and if given to shove, yeah, humans we're not as moral agents as we like to believe, and I kind of
Oh,
get
bro, that's
on.
so frustrating for me because I feel like all the people I talk to
Yeah,
who like assume that like we're fucking angels or whatever, I just feel like they've never missed a meal. You know, like it's
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
crazy to me.
I also tell people they assume that come into the bush with me for 4 days. Watch what
Dude,
happens.
and yeah, and that's the crazy thing too. Like so for instance, like I said, I don't enjoy killing things, but what I learned through my experiences where I was without a meal and I was tired and I was angry and I was frustrated and all that kind of stuff, I was like, man, I'd kill somebody so fast, so fast.
Well, so
It's not even like a mean thing. It's more like if I had to survive and I thought that person was a piece of shit, like yeah, of course, me or him, it's me. Like fuck you. Like that would just be
yeah,
almost instantaneous.
look, life consumes life. There's no way around it, and you
Yeah.
can say it's an
Oh, dude,
appeal
that's
to
why
nature. Blah blah
vegans drive
blah.
me fucking crazy with that shit.
Oh, so
Where they're like,
I'm
dude,
gonna
we
actually
gotta build
dispel some.
retirement homes for fucking chickens. Like, we gotta build retirement homes for fucking chickens
No,
and
you want to
cows
know
and shit.
you want to know the funny thing about vegans is they're
Mm.
inadvertently asking for genocide of billions of cows.
Oh,
They want to
dude,
save the cows,
yeah.
but here's the thing though,
But
and
they'll kill
I
that
actually
generation.
intended on
That happened with
yeah,
greyhounds, by the way. So like Florida had racing greyhounds, in their state, or in the state, and we basically banned racing. And what ended up happening was we had like 50,000 fucking greyhounds immediately available, and of course like a good chunk of them because they saw the story, they were like, okay, we'll adopt them, and like a shitload of them got adopted. But the older ones, the sicker ones, the ones that
they get euthanized.
yeah, all of
Yeah,
them.
they get euthanized.
So like I'm
Okay,
happy
so
that sorry, real quick. I'm happy that the
go ahead.
cruelty of like animal racing is done, but I also think that a lot of the fucking do-gooders were not thinking about the consequences of their
Yeah.
actions at all.
So I debate vegans all the
I'm
time.
going down.
All the fucking time. So basically, you know what the most abundant resource we have is on the planet? Grass. The
Nice.
one thing we can't eat. So what cows do is
Is
they
turn it
take
into
that most
fucking food.
abundant to usable protein. Now, this is the caveat, or I keep saying caveat. I'm so fucking stupid sometimes. All right, so this is the catch 22. All right,
Mhm.
in order for us to have a sustainable future, we need these livestock. We need cows and chickens and ducks and pigs, and we need to
To interact
access
with the
that
soil.
protein as well. Like I'm a big hunter, right? I hunt every year on the dot. I just got back from hunting, like I say 2 weeks ago, right? I go hunting every year. Did you know that hunters provide 20% of the funding for the EPA?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, through like permitting and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not even that, but gun sales, backpack sales, bow sales, bullets, everything goes to a small portion of the Roberts Patterson Act goes to funding these resources. Hunters like me, none of us enjoy the killing aspect of it. I don't like killing a majestic elk. It's not fun for me. But you know
Hmm.
what I do like?
Hmm.
Having 400 pounds of meat in my fucking fridge that will provide for me and my family. We have to start seeing the ecosystem as a resource that we need to extract carefully from.
Hmm.
So I always give people this thought experiment, and now I'm going to give it to you. Can you name me the one animal that we took out of the ecosystem that nothing bad will happen?
I don't know because even with the mosquito, I think we're trying that down here, and even I was like, guys, we don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I was
You
actually
know
pretty
what that
worried.
animal is?
What, humans?
You know what that animal is? Humans.
Yeah. Fuck.
If you take mosquitoes out, for instance, that affects the fish population, that affects
Right.
the pollination, the other animals, everything starts to collapse. You take humans out, guess what happens? It's a
Nature
fucking
comes
party,
back.
dude. Nature
Yeah.
comes back. So I think, and in order for us to move forward as a society and get past this hurdle, is we need to start seeing ourselves as no longer separate from nature, but being inextricably tied to nature. We need to start seeing nature as a resource that we need to be stewards of, and that we can maintain.
Dude, stop
We
stealing words
can,
out of my brain.
yeah,
Fucking so
yeah.
so
So
literally
we
I got so sorry. I just got so frustrated with like lefties and progressives or whatever, because it's always this fucking finger wagging. Like it's never an appeal to the moral foundations of other people, and Christians in particular, like more liberals and progressives. They're just like, oh, you're religious. Like that's their reaction, and they don't understand that they literally shut people off from considering anything they have to say after that point. Whereas if
yeah
you
yeah
say, hey, bro, did you know that fucking Richard Nixon was the dude who established the EPA? Did you realize that a base dude like fucking Teddy Roosevelt was the guy who fucking, originally set up
yeah
like the national park system? Did you realize that basically like God in Genesis doesn't call us to be fucking maimers and murderers of our environment, and doesn't call us to even be kings. He calls us to be stewards. Stewards.
yeah
People
yeah
who maintain a kingdom on behalf of the fucking king. And
yeah yeah
if you literally took a Christian and you're like, "Hey, look at the way that we're treating the environment. Is this stewardship?" I think they would fucking shit blood if they thought about it for more than 2 seconds. And so
yeah.
that for
I
me
think
is
it's
like I hate liberals and progressives because they couldn't communicate with a fucking conservative to save their goddamn lives.
Yeah, and I think it's a strong level of inadvertent cognitive bias. Look, I
Mm-hmm.
get it. It's really rough to think that your cell phone was mined by some 8-year-old kid
Mm-hmm.
in South Africa who, you know what I mean? Like it's rough that your entire life is built off the back of billions and billions of slaves, because that's the
And
nature of us
other
living.
people and other
Yeah,
animals suffering.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's unfathomable, a lot of people suffering so that you can sit on your Xbox and play video games. So I get it. You don't want to think about it, but this is why like guys like me are important, because what I teach people is like, hey, it doesn't have to be this or that. We don't need to go back to hunter gatherers. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like we can still live this life. Like for instance, a small thing you can do, like you're trying to do, is start a little garden. Look up on YouTube. You can find, and let's say you don't have the land, you can look up online on how to create your own indoor garden with shoe closet racks. You know, the little plastic shoe racks where you can put your shoes in that hang on the door.
Mm-hmm.
People have come up with ways to grow food out of there that you can grow your lettuce. Did you know that, like, if you go to the store, right, go to the grocery store and get a head of lettuce, if you if you don't cut off 3 inches near the root and stick it in a Tupperware bin of water, it'll grow again.
My wife started doing that, yeah. So,
Yeah. But it's small, minor things that you can
but
do,
dude,
and
but
everybody
no.
can
This
do
is
it.
literally, oh god, this fucking kills me. So, all right, so this is one of the most like base conversations I've ever had, basically because you're doing half the things that I wish other people would fucking do. So one of the most frustrating things that I heard, particularly during like the Hassan like live your values fucking discourse or whatever,
Oh God.
was basically like there's a bunch of leftists, liberals, and progressives who literally think that if the government doesn't do it, you can't do anything. That's their
Which
actual
is
opinion. And it's
it's so weird.
fucking, well, one, it's disgusting. Two, it's so convenient
Yeah.
that everybody else has to do shit and you don't. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
that
yeah,
so
exactly.
convenient? Everyone else,
Yeah.
they have to reduce their CO2 position. They have to create fusion power so we can replace fission. They have to fucking regulate carbon and fucking reduce the output from companies. They have to shift the agricultural industry in order to fucking do things. No, I can't do anything. I can't do anything by myself. I can't alter my carbon footprint. I can't fucking be a better steward of the planet. I can't do anything. It
Okay,
drives
so
me fucking insane.
so here's some cool things that you can do. So for instance, let's say you drink almond milk, right? Did
Mm-hmm.
you know that one almond takes 1.8 gallons of water to produce?
So
One almond.
yeah.
one single almond, and almond milk, the jug,
From
is like
California, probably.
thousands of almonds. Yeah, it's thousands of almonds in one of those jugs. You're
Hmm.
talking, if that little almond milk right there, it took maybe 10,000 gallons of water to produce.
Right.
And that's not even including the gasoline it took to come from California to
Yeah, but
here.
did you know
So,
I didn't
and
kill a conscious creature in order to create that?
oh
Didn't you know
yeah,
that?
well you did. You did. Did you know that veganism kills billions of animals every year? The problem I have with vegans and leftists is they go, "Oh, we gotta go all vegan." Okay, well, what about all the mice and the
Yeah.
squirrels and the deer and the bugs, the snakes? They're dying in untold numbers, and even with wind farms, like they're killing like millions of birds every year
Well, okay,
from wind
so
farms.
I'll tell you why though. There's some cope with the fucking birds, okay? Because basically like
The government replaced them all, dude. Don't you know? They're all fucking robots. The government
well
replaced all the birds in 1994.
okay, but no. The cope I hear from Republicans is like, no, but don't you love the birds, you fucking environmentalist piece of shit or whatever? And like I was like, I think the moral foundations or whatever that like vegans and anti like the
I
green
used to be
revolutionary
vegan.
people, yeah, the green revolution people, they are trying to preserve the most amount of life, and they are trying to
Yep.
do like a utilitarian
Yes.
analysis. They just might not be aware of the data, and then also once
Yeah.
you
Well.
find out the data, the actions that you have to take are completely different. So since the
Yeah.
actions you
Yeah.
have to take are completely different, if they're inconvenient to your morality or to you thinking about killing a cow or killing a chicken or whatever, like then you're fucked, because like you can't
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't you can't
Well.
eat a
So.
chicken over the almond milk, because even though all the almond stuff takes more energy and more stuff, it's in a very abstract way.
Well.
That's not as much as thinking about a
Yeah.
cow getting cow
Of
punched in
course.
the fucking head.
I get it fully. I get veganism fully. I was vegan for 5 years, and then I got sick, and then I've been 100% meat the last 3 years. I
Hmm.
eat nothing but meat or
Let
animal
me
protein.
know
And
how your atherosclerosis does as you age. Like I'm not, and if that's not because
oh,
like
I'm
I'm
in the
talking
health.
shit,
I know
it's because
I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I get a blood panel every 6 months.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, just keep
I,
me posted. And I do know, so for instance, like atherosclerosis, which is just buildup of plaque in your arteries for those who are unaware.
that's I'll
Um,
tell you right now, that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
well, it's a thing
It's
as in
not.
it hurts and kills people.
Yeah, but it's not for meat. That's actually a myth. That's not for
Oh
meat.
no
So
no no
the
no!
studies that they.
That's what I was about to
Oh,
say. So people
oh,
saw that like cholesterol. They're like, oh, cholesterol is in meat, and it's this fatty whatever thing that like helps transport protein cells through whatever, and fat cells throughout the body. So therefore, like eating meat increases your dietary cholesterol. But that's not true.
yeah, and
What
so
increases your
no, it's not
diet
at all.
Yeah, what increases your dietary cholesterol isn't consuming cholesterol. It's in like constantly consuming a higher amount of calories, because you have to transport all
Yeah.
that fat around your fucking arterial system. And the fact that, like, by the way, the fact that doctors had to like research that in order to figure that out, I'm kind of like annoyed, because like doesn't that seem relatively obvious that like transporting
Doctors are not
fat in obese people's bodies might be more responsible for atherosclerosis than meat?
Yeah.
Like
So
isn't that
so a
like,
lot
if you
of
think
these,
about it for
yeah,
about 4 seconds, isn't that kind of obvious?
yeah. Look, you don't need to be fucking Sherlock Holmes to figure that out, okay?
Well, I mean, dude,
But
when I
here's
first figured it out, I was like, maybe I am Sherlock Holmes, because doctors haven't
so a
figured
lot
this
of those
out.
so a lot of those studies that people point to are mainly vegans. Is they're etymological studies. They're questionnaires. And what
Right.
they do is they do aggregates. They go, okay, how many people eat meat compared to how many heart attacks? Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Meat causes heart attacks. But nothing is better. We are omnivores. So once a month I do a binge day where I eat some fruit. But I try
Mhm.
not to eat fruit out of season, but for the most part I'm 100% meat. I eat cheese. I make my own cheese, or I haven't been able to make cheese since I moved in Idaho, but basically, when I was in Arizona, I had a homestead. It was 40 acres, completely decked out, had everything situated. And then I sold it, and then I moved up here, and now I'm slowly grinding the gears and getting back to where I used to be. But there's no greater feeling than knowing where your food comes from and knowing your
Mm.
farmer. And to kind of touch base on what you said before about like how leftists think that the government must force these people to do it. I know a lot of farmers. Almost
Mm.
every single farmer would love to just give you the product because it
Mm.
cuts out the middleman. And leftists can knock conservatives for all they want, or Republicans. I don't see this as a partisan issue. This is a world issue. More people in the rural areas live more sustainably than people in the fucking cities. People in the cities poop in the water they drink.
Yeah.
And then it goes to a fucking treatment plant, and then they drink it. You know where I get my water from? An underground spring,
Right.
straight from Mother Earth. You know, so and
Take that,
like,
you
and
lefty cunts.
yeah, and a lot of people say, oh well, not everybody can live your life. Yes, I get it. Not everyone can. Like, I compost my own poo. I know that's disgusting, and your viewers are probably like, what the fuck? It's a
Whatever,
real
as long as it
thing.
helps
It's
the
called
soil.
human manure. Yeah, I compost my own poo, and we produce no black water on site. It's nothing but gray water, and we run our pee through a three-tiered plant system where it goes into one garden bed, and the plants take it out, and then the next one, and the next one, and what comes out is not pure. It's clean. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you got to go balls to the fucking wall, but just at the end of the day, just be conscious of your decisions and understand that you're not going to change the world, but what you can do is make wherever you're at a little bit better by doing small, minute changes in your lifestyle. Like, do you really need the iPhone 17 or whatever the fuck the iPhone is
Oh,
at
dude, I
now?
got a
Do
new
you really?
iPhone. It's
Do you,
literally smaller. It has like a little bit of better
yeah,
processing speed. It's
but
actually
think
kind of
about,
crazy that it didn't do anything.
so, and I'm not knocking you for this, but think about this for a second. The system has gotten you so
These
enthralled with
cunts.
things. Yeah,
Sorry.
no, but
I'm
please,
literally no, I'm
please, like,
screaming cunts because people like ditched me. Like I've been helping everybody survive and they ditched me at the last second of the mission.
you're playing Warhammer, right?
Yeah, I'm playing the new Dark Tide. It's
Dude,
fucking solid.
I know this is off topic, but your Warhammer meme game is on point, bro.
Thank you.
Dude,
I'm a
I used
fucking
to
boomer,
I
man,
used
but I'm trying.
oh well, you're like my age. I'm late 30s, so you're around my
Yeah,
age, right? You're like
I'm
30s, 40s.
yeah, it's just I turned 35 and I was like,
Wait,
that 40 is 30
wait,
seconds
you're only
away.
35?
Yeah.
You're only 35? Oh
Yep.
fuck, dude, I'm older than you. God damn, dude.
Sweet.
I'm 30. I'm 37. So, but yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I've been living this life for 10 years. And at first, when I first got into it, it was really scary, and I was scared of it. To put it blankly, I was just scared. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. But people don't realize, like, you have the entire collective sum database of human experience and knowledge at your fingertips, and you can find everything on YouTube. Like, I didn't know how to build. I didn't know how to farm. I didn't know anything when I
Yeah.
first started. How I first started, I started dumpster diving. That's like how I got into sustainability, was dumpster diving. Like going in behind grocery stores and realizing that because of our current system, if an apple has a tiny little bruise on it, they throw it away. And I thought, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Dude, I fed myself for years just dumpster diving. One of my first dates with my girlfriend, we went dumpster diving behind a organic, like, it's not a Whole Foods, it's called Sprouts, back in
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah, we got
And it
Sprouts
was
down here.
great, dude. I got like, yeah, okay. So I went into their produce section, like behind the business, because they separate it, and got like 3 weeks worth of food from it. And I'm not saying go do that, but you can do something. And stop being so goddamn doom and gloom. It's not going to be
Bro.
over. Human beings will survive. We're going to be fine.
Well, so
It's a
let's
matter of what.
I want to tell you like something that I actually thought was super fucking funny. So I was wondering, like, my timing could be totally fucked up. Like we might be in the hot period instead of the ice age period. But what if like human production and technology, like during this time period and like the heating of the planet actually aligned with like a cooling cycle, and as a result of it aligning with a cooling cycle, we technically saved billions of lives because the fucking ice age
Yeah.
like comes to
So
fuck us
when
up,
you.
and then we're like, psych on you, bitch! I fucking put some CO2 parts per million in line with the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 70 degrees planet wide, you piece of shit.
Yeah, but anthropologically, we do better when it warms up, and the data is
Yeah,
quite. I don't think any science disagrees with that. Yeah, you got to
yeah,
remember when the Younger Dryas happened and we came out of it, we invented agriculture. Now,
right.
I kind of subscribe to a guy named Graham Hancock, and mock him if you will. Your viewers might know who he is, but he's been sounding the alarm that human beings have an ancient civilization before the Younger Dryas, and then he ties that with Randall Carlson. But I firmly believe that we're going to be fine, and I think, I'm doing my part, and you're trying to do your part, and that's all people can do is like, hey, just try. Like, hey, instead of
Well,
going to whatever new store sells clothes, go to the fucking thrift store
well,
because every
Yeah, the other
Go ahead.
part about it too, I was gonna say is basically like even if it's just like super simple, just shift. You don't even have to do like all the crazy shit that
Yeah, of course you
you
don't.
guys are talking about. What you could do, which I think is awesome, is basically just adopt that idea that
Yeah.
you're just you handle you. And and I'm not saying
Yep.
like that's going to fix all the world's problems, but what I am
It
saying is
won't.
like it'll solve your problems. And on top of that,
Yep.
you're not getting out of this shit alive. So you have two options. You can fucking doom scroll on fucking Twitter 8 hours a goddamn day, fucking hanging out with other leftists and progressives or whatever who basically think the planet is going to end in 12 years. Or you could, like you said, farm, do local food, cooperatives, communicative shit, all the stuff that leftists talk
Yeah.
about but never fucking do. And that's
Well, yeah.
you could spend your energy that way instead. So
Yeah,
yeah.
even if and I tell people like, look, man, I'm a radical, bro. I'm a radical. Like, I literally work
You're the
7 days
one
a week.
person. You're the one person that can use that meme where it's like, I just wanted to be left alone. You can do that. Nobody else can do
Yeah, damn right.
that.
I'm literally I live in a town in Idaho. I won't disclose my town location, but I live in a town in Idaho that has no police. There's no one here.
Right.
There's
Nice.
no one.
Dude,
And
anarchist
that's my
dream.
bag. You know
Anarchist
why I like it? Because
dream.
you know why I like it? Because I could walk outside my house buck ass naked, eat a bowl of cereal if I want. Now, I don't eat cereal, but you get my drift. Like, I can do whatever I want. And
Yeah.
I think what happens is, we are so reliant on the system to keep us alive that we've become docile. And we forgot of the giants that came before us that grueled for thousands of years and lived this way. I'm
But that would be
homesteading. It's not
work.
that.
That would be work,
It
bro.
would be work. But
That
here's the
would be
difference,
work.
though, and I want to tell anybody who's listening to you right now that's thinking about living in a homestead or doing this, do it. It is the shittiest, most fulfilling thing you will ever do. It is.
Sweet.
You will cry, you will hate it, but when you wake up and you walk outside and you see your garden and your ducks and your cows, and like, I have guardian dogs, like I have like 5 dogs. That 3 of them sleep outside. When you go outside and you're drinking your coffee and you're seeing your dogs and they're happy to see you and the sun's rising, and you look around you and you realize like you created this. And I think that's what's really missing in our society, is that attachment to the soil and the attachment to the animals around us. Like, yeah, I don't like killing my ducks. It's not fun for me. But I know that those ducks had the best goddamn life they can have.
Oh,
And
compared to being
to
like
be
factory
honest,
farmed or fucking or even
I have
to be in the wild without protection. Yeah.
yeah, like, dude, I tell people, like, look, I got into a debate with like a vegan when I was in the city capital here in Idaho, Boise, and he was like, oh, well, I can't believe you hunt. And I was like, well, think about it. Okay, so the average lifespan for an elk is 4 years. What do you think is more ethical? A bear mauling it to death while it's still alive and eating
Or
it
you
while it's still
shooting it
alive, or
with a
me
bow and
shooting an
arrow.
arrow?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I bow hunt. I bow hunt specifically for that reason, because I want the animal to have every opportunity to survive, and
Yeah.
I want to get within 15, 30 yards, so I feel that connection with it. And most hunters will tell you that. Any bow hunter will tell you that it's like a spiritual experience, and it's not fun. Like, you have this moment of like, you've worked really hard, you're there, you got your arrow knocked, you're sighted in, you're good to go, and then there's like this hesitation
Yeah.
because you're just in awe of this like 600-pound majestic creature.
That
But
you're about to put a
then,
fucking arrow through his heart.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah. But
No,
then
no,
2 weeks
and I'm not
later,
talking shit when I say that. I just mean
oh, no, it's true, it's true. And no, it's
yeah,
true. You're about to put a fucking arrow through its chest. Like, yeah, you're gonna kill it. But then 2 weeks afterwards, when you give your bestest bud like 10 pounds of elk meat that he feeds his wife and kids with, and you see the joy on their face, I get that feeling. I want everyone to experience it. I know not everyone can hunt, but everyone can do something. I'm almost certain there's somebody nearby with some chickens or some ducks that you can talk to and say, hey, man. A lot of farmers will also do what they call a farm share, where you can buy a cow at a farm and the cow still stays on the farm. You just own that cow, and then the farmer eventually sells it to you. Like, he'll process it for you when it's ready to go. Like, when I was in Arizona, I had 4 head of cattle, and we designed a system that we thought was the most ethical for that, because there is an ethical way to process these animals. So what we did specifically, and I don't know if anybody else has ever done this, and maybe I just thought of it, but I created a wooden structure where from the entire time the cow was there, I would kind of teach them that this meant they got food now and then, and it was good food. Like I would put like milk in it and shit, and really they love it. And they got so accustomed to it, so that when I went to go process them, I would bring them to the pen where the structure was, and they would just slide right in, and then it's a quick shot.
And they were
Boom.
they were calm. Yeah.
They were eating.
Which,
were
by the way,
happy,
some humans
calm.
aren't going out that good.
No.
Like, bro, hey, it's milk and honey time. It's fucking, it's chilling time, and then,
you know. And I tell people, like, look, you can still be a moral agent and a moral actor in this, and still think of what's best.
Dude, like legitimately, that that is less suffering. Let's say that we decided that we're gonna keep like nature going as like an independent system or whatever, and we'll live separate from it. We'll only do lab meat, and we'll do like plant-based shit, right? Like we just decide that. That means that the natural world is. Yeah, so that would mean the natural world would perpetuate on, where, like you said, like cow would become like wild cow. They would become like bison or buffalo or whatever. And then once they become that like wild species after the genocide, right? Once they become that wild species after the cow genocide, the remaining wild animals, their death options would be like dying of disease, dehydration, malnutrition, lack of resources, lack of food, or being eaten. Like by the fucking, being eaten by a predator, like you said, being mauled to death by a fucking grizzly bear. So just on an individual experiential basis, would you prefer, let's say, our friend here walks you into a fucking stall, gives you a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then shoots you in the fucking head, and you don't even know it happened because you literally you're not capable of understanding that it happened.
1,400-pound bear mauls you to fucking death.
Or when you, exactly. But believe it or not, we already did almost 90 minutes. We're at like 85 minutes right now, and I know my other bro has been waiting for me. So, but no, this was awesome, and I know that it wasn't like so. Some people that they want the debate, they want this, that, the other. But for me, the reason why this conversation was so cool for me is these are the things that everybody talks shit about doing, but never does. And so that's part of what I love about it is like, hey guys, like not only are there macro things we can do, like basically doing the rotational farming, kind of like you were talking about. But there's also micro things you can do where if you're bitching about this day after day after day after day, you can do some shit about it. And that's the thing. It's like, and basically I'm trying to guilt trip the people that are listening right now, the roughly 30, 40 folk who are listening. Basically like, put up or shut up, dude. Like if you give this much of a shit about this, then you should be like thinking, all right, I got friends. We might have some capital. Maybe I can move to Idaho. Where's the best internet connection so I can keep fucking doom scrolling on on Twitter most days. Montana.
As an Idaho resident.
Yeah, something.
Don't move to Idaho, please. Just stay the fuck away from my state.
But you know what I'm saying? Like you pick something, bro. Don't be bitching but not doing anything about it. That's really what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think as my closing statement, I think we're too lost in the debate and we're not having dialogue. And I think for your viewers, if you're interested, you can hit me up on Twitter at VeracityandR, and I'd be happy to give you more resources or show you the way. And I think we just need to have real life solutions, and we need to come together. And I don't mean it as like a hippy dippy, let's all fucking hold hands and sing kumbaya, but we need to have earnest and honest conversations about the data, see what we're really facing, and then tackle this as a unified, decentralized species.
Oh, because and even if there was a climate apocalypse, wouldn't you be better off on your own fucking homestead with your better fucking source of food and all that shit? Wouldn't that be so much better than fucking basically being in the middle of the city when like the whatever you call it, the unsustainable fucking farming practices come back to finally bite you in the ass? Like, what's better?
Dude, literally if the whole world ceased to exist except for Idaho, I wouldn't even know the difference in my own lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, oh, okay, well, I can't go to the grocery store for coffee anymore. I guess I got to go eat these plants that have the same fucking properties. But yeah, man, it's been fun. If you ever want to do something like this again on a different topic, just let me know.
Absolutely, brother.
I know,
So
I know a lot
genuine
about it.
pleasure, and then I'm gonna piss off my teammates by being AFK for a second while
All
I
right,
set
man.
up that other call. Appreciate you, man.
All right, sweet. All right, have a good day. All right,
Catch ya.
night. Peace.